Welcome to Feminine Vibes, where every change tells a story. I looked into the mirror, and the man I had been for years was gone. My husband smiled at me, his eyes full of something I didn't understand. "You're perfect now," he whispered. Wait, what had I just become? Stay with me, because this story will change everything. Don't forget to subscribe. The first night after that whispered sentence, I couldn't sleep. My hands shook as I traced the edge of the silk scarf he had laid across my shoulders. It was soft, warm, but foreign. My reflection in the darkened window was the same face, yet somehow different. Every line, every shadow, felt sharper, stranger. I remembered my life before him, the gym sessions, the calloused hands, the mirror filled with sweat and muscle. I had been proud of that body, my voice deep and confident. And now, I felt a strange fragility creeping into my bones. Each step toward the bathroom mirror made my heart thud like a drum I couldn't quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands. Were they still mine? The nails were long, painted a subtle pink. My fingers felt delicate, as if they might snap under my own weight. A part of me panicked. This isn't me. This can't be real. But another part, a trembling whisper, felt a strange sense of relief. Relief. I shook my head. I wasn't ready to admit it. I tried to recall the person I had been just yesterday, the confident gym boy, the man my friends knew, the brother, the son. But that person felt distant, like a photograph fading in sunlight. I could almost hear his voice, teasing me in my memory, "You'd never admit this to anyone, but..." I pressed my hands to my face, tracing my jawline, my cheekbones. Everything was softer. I hated that softness. And yet, as I touched the curve of my lips, I realized my breath caught. The reflection stared back at me with wide, curious eyes that almost seemed alive in a way I hadn't noticed before. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees. Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes, not from sadness alone, but confusion, fear, and something unnameable. The sound of his footsteps on the stairs reminded me I wasn't alone in this transformation. He believed in me. Or, maybe he believed in the woman I was becoming. And me. I wasn't sure I believed in myself yet. The next morning, he guided me to the wardrobe like a quiet ritual. My hands trembled as I touched the fabrics, soft silks, delicate lace, skirts that whispered against each other as if alive. The scent of perfume lingered, floral and intoxicating, and for a moment, I froze, overwhelmed. "Just start small," he said, his voice gentle, almost coaxing. I nodded, though my stomach churned. Sliding my arms into a delicate blouse, I felt the material cling differently than the rough cotton I was used to. It brushed against my skin like a second heartbeat, foreign, intimate, and comforting. Standing in front of the mirror, I traced the seam of the blouse with trembling fingers. My reflection shifted, not just in appearance but in essence. My shoulders seemed narrower, my neck longer, and the curve of my waist subtle, undeniable, made me catch my breath. He handed me a skirt, soft as clouds, and as I stepped into it, the swish against my legs made my heart thrum. The sound was hypnotic. The mirror reflected a figure I didn't fully recognize. I raised my hands to my face, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear, and the reflection mimicked me perfectly. Almost teasingly. When he helped me with makeup, every brushstroke felt like a revelation. Foundation smoothed the edges of my jaw, blush highlighted the high points of my cheeks, and mascara traced my lashes into delicate fans. My lips, once unnoticed, were now painted a soft rose. Each movement was an echo of someone I might have been, yet had never met. I spoke aloud, testing my new voice, and it wavered, uncertain. Hello? I whispered. The sound was lighter, softer, almost melodic. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, and a small thrill ran down my spine. For the first time, I didn't recoil from the reflection. My fingers traced the curve of my waist, the line of my neck, the softness of my face. And a quiet thought surfaced, one I couldn't fully admit yet. Maybe this feels right. He smiled, eyes shining with encouragement, and I realized transformation wasn't just in the clothes. It was in every hesitant breath, every small thrill, every quiet acceptance I hadn't expected to feel. Days passed, And the routine became ritual. Every morning, every careful adjustment of clothing and makeup, I felt a strange alignment, but something gnawed at me. Who was I really becoming? And why did part of me want it? One evening, he handed me a small, folded note. "Read it," he said softly. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. The words were simple, but they struck harder than any weight I had lifted at the gym. "I've always loved her. But now, I see you. And it's more than love, it's admiration, awe, and trust." My breath caught. I blinked at him, confused. What do you mean?" He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "The woman in the mirror, she's everything I've ever wanted. But the man you were, he never let me see this side of you. Now I do. And I want you to see it too." I stumbled backward, heart pounding. Admiration. Awe. Trust. His words painted my reflection in colors I hadn't known existed. My reflection wasn't just mine, it belonged to someone I was becoming under his gaze, someone he cherished. And the weight of that realization pressed on me like gravity. I sank onto the bed, clutching the note. A tear escaped, trailing down my cheek. For years, I had defined myself by muscle, strength, and control. And now, here I was, feeling exposed in the most delicate way possible, yet strangely alive. "Do you love me like this?" I asked, voice trembling. "Yes," he whispered. "Not the man you were. The person you are now. The one I've always seen, even when you couldn't." I looked in the mirror again, and this time, the reflection felt collaborative. A dialogue, not a contradiction. Fear and relief tangled in my chest. I wasn't sure I could fully embrace it, but a part of me wanted to. Wanted to step further, to see how far this could go. That night, I slept in a dress for the first time. Not forced, not coaxed, simply because I wanted to. And in the quiet darkness, I realized that the twist wasn't just his revelation. It was mine too. The following weeks blurred into a series of firsts: first heels, first fitted skirts, first time hearing my own voice in the soft, melodic tones that now seemed natural. Every glance in the mirror was a confrontation and a revelation all at once. One evening, he led me to the balcony. The city lights twinkled below like stars brought to earth. I wore a flowing dress, its fabric brushing against my legs, and the wind lifted a few strands of hair across my face. I felt naked and powerful all at once. "You're beautiful," he said, voice steady but full of emotion. "Not just beautiful, whole." I laughed, a strange, airy sound that startled me. Whole. That word echoed, bounced against my ribs. Settled somewhere I hadn't dared explore. Whole. Was this joy? Relief? Identity? The line blurred. I looked down at my hands, tracing the curve of my nails, the softness of my skin, the unfamiliar delicacy. I don't know if I even know who I am anymore," I whispered. "You are the person I've always wanted to know," he replied, placing his hand over mine. "Not the man, not the boy, not the mask you wore. The real you, the one I see now." My chest tightened. I felt a tidal wave of emotion, fear, longing, shame, love, liberation, all crashing simultaneously. My knees buckled slightly, and he caught me, holding me against his chest. In that moment, I saw myself fully in the mirror behind him. Not just the reflection I had feared, not just the softness I had resisted. But someone alive, vibrant, undeniable. The reflection wasn't a stranger. It was me. And for the first time, I didn't recoil. A tear slipped down my cheek, and he kissed my forehead softly. "You're not losing yourself," he murmured. "You're finding her. You're finding yourself." I realized then that I had been holding back my entire life, trying to fit into molds that were never mine. And now, I was stepping fully into a version of myself that scared me, thrilled me, and finally felt real. The city lights flickered below, and for the first time, I didn't just see them. I felt them, mirrored in the rising pulse of my own awakening. The following mornings were different. I no longer approached the wardrobe with hesitation, but with curiosity, a quiet, trembling excitement. The clothes were no longer foreign objects but extensions of something I was only beginning to understand. Silk slid over my skin like whispers, Lace traced the curves of my body in ways that made me catch my breath. He watched me quietly as I experimented with colors, fabrics, and subtle accessories. Sometimes he'd suggest a touch of blush, a light curl in my hair, and I'd follow, surprised at how natural it felt. I traced my reflection in the mirror slowly, noticing the way my body moved differently, how the sway of my hips, the tilt of my head, the curve of my shoulders created a rhythm that was unfamiliar, yet strangely right. It wasn't only the physical change. My mind had shifted, too. Where there had once been tension and self-doubt, I felt a cautious confidence. My voice, lighter now, carried a melody I hadn't recognized. I found myself laughing at small things, tilting my head in ways that drew his gaze, noticing how he looked at me with awe, admiration, and, something deeper, something I hadn't dared imagine before. At night, I would lie awake and replay moments from the day. The simple act of brushing my hair, adjusting my dress, feeling the softness against my skin, it had become meditation, ritual, revelation. I realized that each new step wasn't just about looking like her, it was about discovering who I truly was beneath the mask I had worn for so long. And yet, fear lingered in corners of my mind. What if this wasn't accepted? What if I couldn't reconcile the person I had been with the person I was becoming? But even as that fear whispered, it was overpowered by a small, growing truth. I was alive in a way I had never been before. One evening, he whispered as he held my hand, "You're learning to love her, aren't you?" I swallowed hard, feeling my chest tighten. "Yes," I admitted softly, almost in awe. I think I am." And in that quiet acceptance, I felt a flicker of peace, a fragile but undeniable hope that maybe, finally, I was stepping fully into myself. The first time I stepped outside fully dressed, I felt exposed in a way that made my chest tighten. The sunlight seemed sharper, the pavement harder, and every passerby a potential judge. My heels clicked tentatively against the concrete, each step a reminder that the world might not understand me, might not accept the person I was becoming. He walked beside me, hand steady on the small of my back, offering silent support. I took in my reflection in shop windows as we passed. My posture felt different, graceful, hesitant, aware. Each glance made me hold my breath, wondering if someone would notice, recognize, or judge. "Breathe," he whispered, and I tried. Inhale, exhale, repeat. My heartbeat thundered as we entered a small cafe. The air smelled of coffee and pastries, ordinary and grounding. I ordered my drink, voice trembling slightly, and I felt eyes linger. Some curious, some indifferent, some questioning. I realized then that fear and exhilaration were intertwined. Every small movement, the tilt of my head, the sway of my dress, the lift of my chin, was a statement. Not loud, not boastful, but undeniably mine. And with every step, I felt the reflection in the window grow steadier, more confident, more real. He squeezed my hand and smiled, a silent affirmation. "You're doing it," he said. And I realized I was. Doing what, exactly? Becoming visible. Becoming myself. And yet, the vulnerability lingered like a shadow at my feet. That night, as I changed back into my private clothes, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. The person staring back was the same one I had seen all along, but stronger now because I had faced the world. And the world hadn't broken me. Not yet. For the first time, I allowed a small, proud smile. Maybe I could survive this. Maybe I could thrive. Maybe. I was exactly where I was meant to be, and it was terrifying, and it was beautiful. The quiet of our apartment felt different that evening. The soft hum of the heater, the faint aroma of lavender from his diffuser, the gentle sway of curtains in the breeze, it all seemed sharper, more alive. I was in a silk nightgown, the fabric clinging softly to my skin, and I caught my reflection in the mirror again. He sat on the edge of the bed, watching me. Not with judgment, not with expectation, but with a tenderness that made my chest ache. "Do you feel it?" he asked softly. I hesitated. "Feel what?" "This," he said, gesturing between us, between my reflection and my body. "This alignment. You, becoming you. Not just how you look, but how you feel." I swallowed, a shiver running down my spine. I realized he was right. Each movement felt deliberate, each glance at the mirror filled with quiet curiosity. I was learning to inhabit this body, this presence, not as a costume, but as myself. And in that inhabitation, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. As he approached, I flinched slightly, remembering old fears. But his hand was gentle on my cheek, tracing a line I hadn't noticed before. "You're beautiful," he whispered, and it wasn't a comment on the surface, it was recognition of every hesitant step I'd taken, every moment of doubt, every heartbeat of courage. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Not sadness. Not regret. Pride. Relief. Desire. All tangled together. I leaned into him, letting myself be held, letting myself be seen, letting myself exist without pretense. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was losing something I had been. I felt like I was gaining everything I had been too afraid to claim. The mirror reflected not just a body or a face, but a soul unfolding, slowly, beautifully, undeniably. I whispered, almost to myself, "I think I'm starting to love her." And in his soft smile, I felt confirmation. Love isn't just spoken, it's witnessed, nurtured, and reflected back in the quietest, most intimate ways. The next week brought a challenge I hadn't anticipated, a casual outing with friends. My heart pounded as I dressed carefully, choosing a pastel blouse and a flowing skirt. Each piece felt like armor and revelation all at once. The mirror reflected someone I was beginning to trust, but the fear of judgment lurked beneath the surface. He held my hand as we walked to the cafe, his presence a quiet anchor. The street was alive with movement, people laughing, cars humming past, the distant bark of a dog. Each step made me hyper-aware of my posture, my voice, the sway of my hips. I felt exposed, but I also felt powerful in a way I couldn't yet explain. Inside, the chatter of familiar voices hit me. My friends glanced up, curiosity flickering in their eyes. I smiled, nervous but steady. "Hey," I said, my voice lighter, carrying a melodic cadence I was learning to own. Their expressions shifted: surprise, hesitation, then tentative acceptance. He whispered in my ear, "You're doing it. Just be you." And so I did. I laughed when jokes landed, tilted my head when someone spoke to me, and even caught the reflection of my own confidence in the windowpane. The mirror I carried in my mind reflected a person who had once feared exposure but now dared it. Later, when we walked home, the cool evening breeze tugged at my hair and skirt. I realized that the fear hadn't vanished, it never would, but it no longer defined me. The world hadn't broken me. My own courage had. That night, staring into the bathroom mirror, I traced the line of my jaw, the curve of my neck, the soft brush of hair across my shoulder. I realized that external validation was fleeting, but self-recognition, true, undeniable, was eternal. I whispered to my reflection, almost in awe, "I can survive this. I can thrive." And for the first time, I truly believed it. The mornings had started to feel different. I would stand by the window, sunlight spilling over my shoulders, tracing the lines of my body in the mirror. The reflection no longer startled me, it whispered truths I had long denied. Each curve, each delicate line, was a story I was beginning to tell myself. He watched me from the doorway sometimes, silently, his gaze tender and unwavering. "Do you ever just pause and notice?" he asked one morning, voice soft. I nodded, swallowing. "I think I am noticing her. And me. Both, I guess." He stepped closer and brushed a stray strand of hair behind my ear. The touch was electric but comforting. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "But more than that, she's you. And you are learning to be brave enough to see her." I felt a warmth spread through my chest. The bravery he spoke of wasn't loud or obvious, it was in the quiet acceptance of small things, the way I adjusted my dress, the tilt of my head, the soft laughter that now slipped freely from my lips. Each gesture was a rebellion against the fear I had carried for years. Later that evening, we sat together on the couch, legs intertwined, his hand resting gently on mine. The soft hum of music in the background was almost silent, but it carried weight. I realized that transformation wasn't just in appearance, it was in connection. In allowing myself to be seen fully, vulnerably, without masks. I glanced at my reflection in the glass coffee table, soft, delicate, alive. And I felt it, pride, relief, love, all tangled together. I was learning that who I had been wasn't lost, it was folded into this new identity, layered, complex, and infinitely real. I whispered to myself, almost reverently, maybe I'm finally home. It started with a text. A friend, someone I had known long before the transformation, asked if I wanted to meet up. My heart skipped. Part of me wanted to hide, to retreat into the safety of the apartment and the reflection I had grown comfortable with. But another part, nervous, excited, defiant, wanted to step forward and be seen. When I arrived, the cafe felt different somehow. Familiar, yet charged with possibility. I noticed eyes flicking toward me, subtle whispers that might have been curiosity or judgment, I couldn't tell. My heels clicked a little louder than usual on the tiled floor, each step echoing in my ears. They smiled when they saw me. "Wow, you look amazing," one said, hesitation in their voice. Admiration, surprise, confusion, all blended together. My pulse raced. I tried to smile, to steady the voice that had grown softer, more melodic, and yet still unfamiliar in public. The conversation started cautiously, tentative laughter, awkward pauses. Questions came, some well-meaning, some probing. "Are you comfortable like this?" one asked softly. I froze for a heartbeat, then realized I could answer honestly. "Yes," I said, and felt the words settle into my chest. I'm learning to be me. All of me." There was silence, and then something shifted. Curiosity softened into acceptance. Admiration replaced doubt. And I realized, with a thrill I hadn't expected, that I had power here not over anyone else, but over myself. Over fear. Over shame. Walking home, the night air cool against my skin, I felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. I had faced the world as her, as me, and it hadn't crushed me. It had lifted me. In the quiet apartment, staring into the mirror, I allowed a small laugh to escape. "I did it," I whispered. "I'm doing it. And I'm proud." The following evening, the apartment felt warmer, softer. Candlelight flickered across the walls, and the faint scent of vanilla lingered in the air. I wore a simple dress, nothing extravagant, but it clung to me in all the right ways, and I felt exposed yet safe. He approached slowly, his gaze steady. "May I?" he asked, holding out his hand. I nodded, heart fluttering. His touch was familiar, gentle, like a bridge connecting who I had been with who I was becoming. We sat together on the edge of the bed, legs brushing. The intimacy was quiet, unspoken. His hand traced a line down my arm, a touch that sent shivers through me. I realized that trust wasn't loud, it was in the pauses, the small gestures, the willingness to let someone see you without protection. "I want you to know," he whispered, "that you don't have to be perfect for me. Just you, her, him, all of it." The words sank deep. I had spent years sculpting myself into a version I thought others expected. Now, vulnerability felt like armor, not weakness. I allowed myself to lean into him, resting my head on his shoulder. We stayed like that for hours, talking in whispers, sharing small confessions, laughter, and silences that spoke volumes. Every brush of his hand, every smile, every quiet word reinforced a truth I had barely admitted to myself. I wasn't just being transformed, I was being seen. Fully, without judgment. Looking into the mirror across the room, I saw the two of us reflected together. My reflection had softened, glowed with subtle curves, and yet it wasn't just about appearance. It was the reflection of connection, of trust, of a life being rewritten in gentle, deliberate strokes. I whispered softly, almost to myself, "I think I'm starting to love her, and me." He kissed my temple, holding me closer. "And I love all of you," he said. "Every step, every change, every discovery. You don't have to hide anymore." For the first time, I truly believed it. Love wasn't a spotlight, it was a quiet understanding, a reflection, a steady hand in the dark. The first time I walked through the crowded streets alone, I felt a flutter of fear mixed with exhilaration. The sunlight caught my hair just right, and the sway of my skirt with every step felt like a declaration. I noticed myself smiling more easily, breathing deeper, moving with a rhythm that had been foreign only weeks ago. People glanced at me. Some with curiosity, some with indifference, and a few with unmistakable admiration. I had felt exposed before, but today, the exposure felt liberating. I wasn't hiding. I was alive, seen, and unashamed. He had given me the courage to try this, but this moment, this step, was mine alone. I caught my reflection in a cafe window and paused, studying her, studying me. The softness of my jaw, the subtle curve of my waist, the way my hair framed my face, it all reflected a quiet power. I smiled, and the reflection smiled back, a silent affirmation of who I had become. Later, I met a friend for lunch. They noticed the change immediately. You're glowing, they said, eyes wide. My heart lifted. Not just for the compliment, but because I could feel the truth in my bones. I was finally comfortable in my own skin. Walking home, I realized something profound. Confidence wasn't loud, it was quiet. It was in the way I held my head high, the way I let my reflection meet my gaze without fear, the way I allowed the world to see me, unapologetically. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting a delicate earring. I whispered to her, to me, we're doing it. Together. For the first time, I didn't see fragments or fears, I saw wholeness, a self that had been hidden for too long, finally stepping into the light. Late at night, the apartment was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the heater and the occasional distant car. I stood by the window, gazing at my reflection in the glass, tracing the contours of my face, the subtle curve of my neck, the softness of my shoulders. I felt a shiver of recognition. This wasn't just someone I had become. This was me. He appeared behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Thinking, he whispered. I nodded, leaning into him. I'm realizing so much. About her. About me. About us. He kissed the top of my head. It's been a journey, he said softly. But every moment, every hesitation, every small victory has brought us here. To this. I closed my eyes, letting the words sink. The reflection wasn't just in the glass, it was in my mind, my heart, the gentle pressure of his hands, the warmth of his presence. I realized that transformation wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, intimate. I was learning to see myself fully and to accept the love he offered without reservation. Do you think I could ever have imagined this? I asked quietly. Maybe not, he said. But sometimes the life we need isn't the life we plan. Sometimes it's the one that scares us, excites us, and ultimately, completes us. I turned to face him, tracing his face with my fingers. I'm scared, I admitted, but happy. More than I've been in years. He smiled, and in that smile, I saw everything I had feared: vanity, fragility, exposure dissolve into trust, admiration, and love. I realized then that this wasn't just about clothes, or appearances, or even desire. It was about embracing all the layers of myself and allowing someone else to see them too. In the mirror, our reflections overlapped, his hand on my waist, my head against his chest. The lines between fear and courage, doubt and love, past and present, they blurred. And in that blur, I felt whole. It happened unexpectedly. I was standing in the full-length mirror, the evening sun spilling across my shoulders, highlighting the gentle curve of my neck and the soft line of my waist. I had dressed simply, just a blouse and skirt, but the reflection that stared back at me felt complete. Not perfect, not manufactured, but undeniably, me. For months, I had hesitated, questioned, feared the judgment of the world. I had tiptoed through mirrors, testing fabrics, voices, and movements. And yet, now, as I stood there alone, I felt a quiet, steady power coursing through me. The fear was still there, lurking, but it no longer commanded me. I twirled slowly, watching the fabric swirl around my legs, the sunlight catching on each fold. A laugh escaped me, light, airy, free. It wasn't just a reflection of what I looked like. It was a reflection of what I had claimed: courage, authenticity, self-love. He stepped into the room quietly, leaning against the doorframe, watching me. You look radiant, he said softly. I met his gaze, no hesitation, no shame. I feel right, I admitted. Like I've finally found a place inside myself that's always been waiting. He approached, taking my hand and holding it gently. I've always known it was there, he said. I just needed you to see it too. The mirror reflected us both, him steady, supportive, loving. Me confident, soft, vulnerable, and powerful all at once. I realized then that transformation wasn't a point in time, it was a journey, a series of choices, a dance between fear and courage, doubt and love. For the first time, I didn't flinch from my reflection. I didn't hide behind shadows or past identities. I allowed her to exist fully, and in doing so, I embraced every part of myself. And in that quiet room, lit by fading sunlight, I understood, this wasn't just change. This was home. Morning light filtered softly through the curtains, painting the room in golden hues. I stood before the mirror, fully dressed, hair styled, makeup subtle but radiant. For the first time, I didn't examine myself critically. I didn't search for flaws or question the reflection. I simply saw her and me, and I nodded. She was real. I was real. And both of us belonged. He appeared behind me, quiet as a shadow, placing his hands lightly on my shoulders. "You're beautiful," he whispered. Inside and out. I felt warmth bloom in my chest. No fear, no hesitation, no questioning. Just recognition, gratitude, and peace. All the doubts that had haunted me, the judgment, the uncertainty, the struggle, had softened. I wasn't losing myself. I was discovering the version of me that had always been waiting. I turned to him, smiling softly. "I love her. I love myself. I finally see it." He smiled, eyes glistening, and took my hand. "And I love all of you. Every step, every change, every moment you've embraced her." I traced my reflection with a gentle fingertip, letting the softness of the glass remind me of the journey. Every hesitation, every fear, every small victory, it had led to this quiet clarity. Transformation wasn't just about appearance, it was about acceptance, love, and courage. We sat together in silence, our hands intertwined, the room filled with an almost tangible sense of completion. I realized that identity isn't a destination, it's a series of moments. A journey, and a willingness to step into truth, even when it's frightening. For the first time, I didn't just see a reflection. I saw a life fully lived, fully embraced, and I knew, without question, that I was home. The evening was still, the city outside hushed under the soft glow of streetlights. I sat by the window, legs crossed, hands resting lightly in my lap, and allowed myself to breathe fully. For months, I had chased, resisted, feared, and embraced. Now, I simply existed, and it felt profound. I thought back to the first night, the trembling hands, the fear in my chest as I faced the mirror. How small, how hesitant I had been. And yet, every step had mattered. Every choice, every whispered encouragement, every quiet experiment with fabric and voice had led me here, to understanding, to acceptance, to love. He joined me quietly, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. I leaned into him, feeling the warmth and steadiness he offered. "It's different now," I murmured. "Yes," he said softly. "You've changed. But not in a way that takes away who you were. You've just grown into all of it. And that's beautiful." I smiled, tracing my reflection in the window pane. Her face, mine, our shared journey, all of it mingled into a truth I could finally embrace. I realized that transformation wasn't about shedding a self, or pretending to be someone else. It was about unearthing the layers that had always existed, peeling back fear and doubt, and allowing the real me to breathe. The room was quiet, yet alive. Alive with recognition, acceptance, and a soft, persistent joy. I whispered to myself, barely audible, "I see her. I see me. And I'm not afraid anymore." He kissed the top of my head. "And I never will let you be." For the first time, I felt fully anchored, not just in the reflection, not just in his arms, but in the knowledge that this life, this identity, this love, it was real, and it was mine. I stood one last time before the mirror, the soft light of morning spilling over my shoulders. Me looked back with quiet strength, delicate curves, and eyes full of stories that words could barely capture. Every hesitation, every tear, Every heartbeat that had led to this moment was reflected in that gaze. I whispered softly, almost to myself, maybe I didn't change at all, maybe I just became who I was meant to be. He joined me, his hand brushing mine. And I'll always see all of you, he said, voice steady. Every piece, every shadow, every light. Always. The room was silent except for our shared breaths, the soft hum of the world outside, the subtle thrill of new beginnings. I realized that transformation isn't just in the mirror, it's in the heart, in the courage to embrace yourself fully, in the trust that love can hold all versions of you. I smiled, tracing the line of my reflection one last time. The journey wasn't about perfection. It was about honesty, acceptance, and the quiet, persistent pulse of being seen. To anyone watching this story unfold, remember, transformation isn't a fantasy or a fleeting trend. It's about discovering yourself, embracing every layer, and loving who you are fully, unapologetically. Thank you for watching this journey. If it touched you, if it made you pause, reflect, or feel seen, please subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the heart, the courage, and the beauty of becoming who you were meant to be.